Welcome, everyone. We are back in the studio again with the Indie Reads Aloud podcast. I'm your host, Diana Catherine Penn, bringing Erica Miner back to you again. Erica is from the Seattle, Washington area, although she has spent a great deal of her life traveling back and forth across the country, playing professionally with orchestras and opera theaters. She plays the violin and she writes some really interesting books. So, welcome back, Erica.
Thank you, Diana. I'm so happy to be back.
This is so much fun. I love it when we have recurring friends showing up on the program again because it means that I get to spend more time getting to know you and your work and share it with the world. So I really
And
appreciate you taking the time to come back.
it's my pleasure.
So the book you're going to read today is Prelude to Murder, which officially is book 2 in the Julia Kogan opera mystery series. But we were just talking in the green room about how all 3 books in this series can be read as standalones. Is there any particular book that you would recommend people start with? Do they have to start with book 1? Or can they kind of grab whichever one is available at their bookshop and pick up that?
I think either or. Any of these can be standalones. I make a point in each of the sequels that I just kind of sprinkle in just little bits of information about what has come before and a little bit about Julia, the protagonist's character, so that people will feel familiar enough to keep going in that particular book. A lot of people will start with book 2 or 3 and then go back to book 1 to find out where she's coming from. But generally, each plot is definitely standalone, different murders, different investigation, different opera house. So they all can be read either on their own or together.
That's fantastic. This means there's less pressure for me to read them into order. So that's amazing. Um, your stories take place at different opera theaters. So out of all of the theaters you've written about, which is your favorite and what's the most memory solidifying? I'm losing my words today for some reason. What's the strongest memory you have of each individual theater? And I don't mean a memory of a performance or a memory of someone on stage, but the memory, a memory that is part of the experience of playing in that theater. I'm a backstage person, I'm a lighting director and a technical director. So I tend to look at theaters a little differently than your average patron. So what would be something I could look for in your favorite of these opera houses?
Well, that's kind of a difficult question because clearly I find something fascinating about each one of them, which is why I chose to write about them. First of all, the Met. I'm very loyal to the Met because that was, among all these, the only one that I actually performed with. And I was there for over 2 decades. So I knew the place
Wow.
inside out, all
Yeah.
of its foibles, the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between. So since I was so intimately familiar with the place and the people who work there, it's hard for me to say it's my favorite because, you know someone too well, and it's, all of their faults and difficulties come out of into the open.
Sure.
Um, after Aria to Murder was published, one of my readers actually, I thought it was going to be a standalone, and one of my readers said, "Okay, so when is the sequel coming?" And I said, "Oh, surprise, surprise." So this guy was a real opera aficionado, and he said, "Well, you need to write a sequel. I need a sequel, and you need to set it at Santa Fe Opera." And I thought that was really interesting because I had never been there, although I knew a lot about it because Santa Fe Opera is only a summer season. And so people at the Met who just can't get enough of opera in 33 weeks during the season go out to Santa Fe to perform in the summer. So I knew a lot of people there. In fact, one important person there, his name was David Holloway, and he ran the apprentice program. The apprentice program for young singers at Santa Fe Opera is one of the most prestigious in the world. So he was a very important guy, and he had been there for years and years. So he gave me an entree to everyone and every place, from the general director to the wardrobe director to singers to directors.
Nice.
I really, and a tour of the place from top to bottom. When we're talking about an outdoor theater, which is set in the middle of two mysterious mountain ranges in the middle of the New Mexican desert. I mean, it's a crazy place, and just rife with possibilities for
Oh, yes.
murder.
That sounds like a lot of open invitation to writing.
Perfect, yes, open invitation, not to mention the fact that Santa Fe, as you will soon hear in this reading, is considered the most ghostly of all of the cities in the US. I mean, ghosts are a big part of everything there. So I thought, and Julia being afraid of ghosts, this is all kind to meld together. So, and it's a beautiful place, the
So
land of enchantment.
so you found a beautiful theater in an amazing location with tremendous lore, and you dropped a character who has a phobia about that exact same lore into this story. That had to be exciting for you to write.
It was so much fun. While I was there, and I was there for quite a long time, I got to see every nook and cranny of this place and talk to people who had been working there for years. And not only was it great fun, but my imagination was going absolutely wild the whole time I was there. I'm like, this would be a perfect spot for that to happen. And David showed me his office, and he said, well, look at that back room. Isn't that someplace where something nefarious could happen? And, so this
So you
it
had cohorts helping you in this
like,
process.
absolutely, you've got to have cohort. I mean, the Met was one thing. I had been there, but this was something absolutely extraordinarily different. So yeah, I definitely had cohorts, as I did in San Francisco. So San Francisco Opera, I had a number of friends and relatives who had worked at San Francisco Opera. So, and also who lived in San Francisco. So I had spent a lot of time in that city and a lot of time at that opera house. So I knew it pretty well already. But this time around, it was somebody, when one of my friends found out that I was writing about Santa Fe Opera, suggested that, well, why don't I write one taking place at San Francisco? So that was an
Yeah,
easy
you
kind of.
really, when you look at the majestic theaters and opera houses, special venues across the country, you could be writing for the next 3 decades or more,
Indeed.
featuring these different beautiful theaters throughout our country. That could be a really fun way to visit. Take your book and go sit in Santa Fe and read, and then take your book and go sit in New York and read, and San Francisco. It just sounds like it would be a wonderful opportunity to for readers to get dig in deep and really become part of the story as they're soaking in that ambiance.
Yeah, I definitely am down with that idea. In fact, next February, there's going to be a writers' conference. It's called Left Coast Crime. It happens every year, and this year, 26, is going to be in San Francisco. So I'm like,
Fun.
there's a no-brainer. How can I
Yeah.
not go there and promote,
It's kind of a requirement now.
is, but also San Francisco is special in that it's the oldest of all these three opera houses and also the creepiest. I mean, I was given a tour from top to bottom, and when we went into that basement, it was freaking me out. I was away. It was just so creepy and terrifying and old.
Sounds like a place I would just love.
Absolutely perfect for murder and mayhem. So if I had to choose which of these three is my favorite, it's almost an impossibility, except for the fact that I have to say that as far as sheer beauty, Santa Fe is the most beautiful. I mean,
Excellent.
it's also the third one. They built the first one burned down under strange circumstances. That's in the book also.
Oh, yeah.
They
Wow.
ended up building another one, but this one, the third one, is absolutely glorious. The architecture, it looks like a sailing ship. out of an opera. It's just
I'm
gorgeous.
going to have to go online and look up some photographs.
I definitely do. I can
Tremendous.
too. It's just it's been fantastic, and I have done some readings there. I did one last summer, as a matter of fact.
Nice, nice. Well, let's get to your reading of this book. I know everybody is excited to hear a little bit of it. So, when you are ready, please take the microphone and read aloud. This is Prelude to Murder, and it is technically book 2 in the Julia Kogan Opera Mystery Series. But remember, folks, you can read them as standalones as well. The phone is yours.
Absolutely. And now that we've given a little background about Julia, I just wanted to mention, Diana, you said exactly the right thing. Here's Julia literally plopped down into a place that is absolutely the opposite of everything that she's been used to all her life. So that can definitely lead to some difficulties. But I'm going to start out with the prologue, and the prologue gives a little background, a little foreshadowing, a little bit about this fascinating history of Santa Fe. Prologue. The magical hues of the spectacular bloody sunset wrought by the Jemez Mountains to the west of Santa Fe disappeared beyond the horizon. Against the backdrop of the majestic but fearsome red clouds of the Sangre de Cristo Mountains to the east, the New Mexican high desert terrain resembled the moonscape, dark, unforgiving, and desolate. A shadowy figure came into view, dragging a shovel. In the ghostly silence, the figure dug a deep hole next to a scrubby chaparral, heaving aside the dry desert dirt with a vengeance. No se preocupe. Don't worry. When the time comes, you will know me and my work. At the base of these peaks in the summer of 1610, Spanish Governor Don Pedro de Peralta and his band of kinsmen had imposed their will on what the early Native American inhabitants called the dancing grounds of the sun, on the site of an ancient Pueblo Indian ruin called Capogue, a place of shell beads near the water. Peralta and his men assembled the plan for a city they would call La Villa Real de Santa Fe de San Francisco de Asís, the royal city of the Holy Faith of Saint Francis of Assisi. The Spaniards were well aware of the region's sacred name given by the natives. They acknowledged the dancing ground title. Then they went on to create havoc, foisting their beliefs and their catastrophic diseases upon the hapless natives. In 1598, they had established Santa Fe de Nuevo Mexico, a province of New Spain. What did they care for the 10,000 years of occupation by the nomadic people who designed mud houses, entered with ladders that opened on the roof that later developed into the Pueblo style, who grew corn, squash, melons, and beans and established their own legitimate society? No corn dance, harvest dance, drumming, chanting will change anything. Pageantry means nothing. None of it matters except revenge. Comanches, Apaches, and Navajos fought back against the Spanish in the Pueblo Revolt of 1680, the source, according to legend, of the Sangre de Cristo's bloody name. Out of necessity, alliances were formed. True to the spirit of Santa Fe, multiculturalism required the acceptance of all their differences, but barely. As time went on, the native cultures and traditions survived, as did those of the Spanish. But the Native Americans' resentments toward their tormentors, los conquistadores, remained, festering, embittering, chafing their psyches. A monument at the main plaza center, built in 1868, honored not the fallen who sacrificed all to the interlopers, but rather those who had died in, quote, battles with the Indians in New Mexico territory, unquote. How this must have rankled the indigenous people. What developed into the country's second oldest city had become a melting pot, simmering over 4 centuries like a tapping lid to absorb waves of settlers of different persuasions. But for the natives, it was a cauldron ready to boil over, its cover about to burst forth from the excess pressure. The figure stopped, wiped off a bead of sweat, and looked around. The remoteness of the locale, in the shadow of the volcanic rock faces of abandoned 12th century Puya cliff dwellings and their few remaining petroglyphs, assured a well-hidden site for the grave. I must do what I must do. They must be punished. I will let no one interfere. With a vicious twist of the wrist, the figure flung away one last shovel of dirt and walked off, leaving the hollow void gleaming in the eerie light of the supermoon. It doesn't matter how long it will take. I can wait forever. The sacred moon will give me patience. Named because of its close proximity to Earth, most people considered this luminous orb auspicious, but it also was known to affect any person's emotions in stark, profound, incomprehensible ways. I'm done for now. but I'll be back. Chapter 1. As they drove from Albuquerque Airport toward Santa Fe, mountain views on all sides, more glorious than Julia had Larry had imagined, filled their eyes and captured their imagination. The mysterious Sangre de Cristo raged to the east, the majestic Chemes peaks to the west. Interject, Larry is the NYPD detective that Julia worked with on the first case at the Met. Back to chapter. Through the open window, Julia breathed in the smell of pinon trees made pungent by the summer rain. It's intoxicating, like honeyed tree sap, sweet, woodsy, and fresh, so purifying. Forgotten were Julia's initial spaciness from the extreme change in altitude of her accustomed sea level to thousands of feet above, and her unrelenting anxiety over the anticipated stress of her new job as concertmaster, or first of the first violinists of the Santa Fe Opera. Her present attention was focused on the natural wonder surrounding her. It's as magical as everyone says, such an air of mystery about it. 200 miles of pre-Cambrian crystalline rock, over 570 million years old. Just then, a sliver of lightning tore through the sky. Julie gave an involuntary gasp and waited until it was followed by the inevitable clap of thunder. Thunderstorms usually frightened her, but in this environment, they seemed more like a natural wonder. When they arrived at their inn, Julia expressed her awe at the Spanish Pueblo revival-style buildings to the concierge. The mysterious, all-important presence of the ancient ancestors' ghostly spirits is very keenly felt here, the concierge affirmed. Julia's friend, Maren Crane, a mezzo-soprano from the Met who had been engaged to sing at Santa Fe that summer, also had filled in Julia about the local ghost lore, informing her that Santa Fe was considered one of the most haunted places in the U.S. The thought of spirit surveillance made Julia significantly uneasy. Do you think we'll have one of their ghosts in our room? Julia whispered to Larry. Maybe you should request one. Very funny. After the concierge had left, Julia again whispered to Larry, the bed's got curtains. Good. We can take refuge behind them when the ghost comes by tonight. Julia groaned. You're not helping. That night, Julia felt restless. The room was quiet, perhaps too quiet. She generally was a light sleeper, but somehow this was different. She tried to conjure one of the most difficult violin passages from the opera Lulu, which was being rehearsed the following day, in her head, but to no avail. Sighing, she turned over and, as she tried to go back to sleep, felt a sensation as if someone had plopped down next to her on the bed. She felt for Larry. He was in his usual position, which never changed during the night. Again, she felt the imprint of a body, but this time it moved closer. Don't open your eyes. Don't open your eyes. Was it the ghost of one of the Native Americans pictured on the wall, come down to avenge his ill treatment at the hands of Spaniards or Anglos, angry that the population of Native Americans in the region had dwindled to a mere 2.5%? Or was it a Spanish missionary killed in the bloody war with Comanches? A wounded soldier from the Mexican-American War? A Pueblo Indian rebel? A crypto Jew persecuted by the Catholics? Julia fought off her curiosity and followed her gut feeling, i.e., to keep her eyes closed and not tell Larry about it. It must be the altitude making me spacey. Now I understand what high desert means. In the morning, she rose before Larry and went to the front desk to request a room change. Larry was wise enough not to ask any questions. Later that day, Julia's heart raced as she and Larry drove north on Highway 285 toward the opera campus. Some of her palpitations might have stemmed from her adjusting to the altitude, or perhaps from her paranormal experience the night before, but more likely they were a result of her nervous anticipation of the day ahead, especially about living up to the expectations of Stuart Blatchley, the conductor, and most importantly, proving her mettle as a concertmaster for the first time in her young life. They turned on Opera Drive, passed by the Opera Traffic Keep Right sign, and wound along the 1.6 miles toward the campus. Julie gazed out across the Tesuque Valley, surrounded by the mountains. The crystal clear blue New Mexico sky seemed to go on forever. As they pulled up to the entry portal of the open-air theater, Julie gazed with admiration at the Crosby Theater, spelled out in gold-tone capital letters on the wall. Julia and Larry both held huge respect for John Crosby, who founded the Santa Fe Opera in 1957 and passed away in 2002. the crazy guy who wants to start an opera company, as one Santa Fe resident had described him. Against all odds, Crosby had established the company in the middle of the desert, framed by New Mexico's mesas and mountains, and, according to urban legend, Crosby's ghost had been encountered numerous times since his demise. Once inside the theater, Julia took the concertmaster's chair. She tried not to give in to her anxiety, not only about fulfilling Stewart's objectives, but also deflecting the resentments of Lenny, the violinist sitting directly behind her. According to Matt, the good-natured assistant concertmaster seated to Julia's left, Lenny had made it widely known that he, not Julia, should have held the all-important position. She was gratified when Matt assured her that he was 100% on her side and would be only too happy to stand up for her when he sensed she might need it. Hopefully not. Act 3, final scene, please. Let's start right off by killing Lulu. Amid snickers from the ranks, Stewart opened his conducting score. Harold, it's 5 seconds to downbeat. Where the hell is Amelia? Julia looked up to see a petite, dark-haired woman flounce on stage, followed by a disheveled man wearing glasses and holding a large book, and a second, equally unkempt man waving his arms. Ma, quel direttore sa niente, the woman complained to the bespectacled man. This director, he knows nothing, she added in a high-pitched, heavily Italian-accented voice. Matt leaned over and whispered to Julia, that guy with the book is the stage manager, Harold. The other one is the director, Salman Kopinski. And in case you didn't know, the screaming lady is none other than Emilia Tosti, Italian soprano from hell. Harold gestured helplessly. But I thought you loved working with Salman, Emilia. That was before I found out he knows nothing, Emilia retorted. Stewart waved from the podium. Good morning, Emilia. Buongiorno, maestro. Emilia narrowed her eyes in the dim light. This direttore tells me murder must take place off stage. Ridiculous. Let's rehearse the music and worry about that later, Stewart said. Where is Goran? Goran Resnicek, a large, imposing man with wild-looking curly locks, strode to Emilia, kissed her on both cheeks, and gave her a reassuring hug. Emilia, my darling. Goran, I cannot stomach working with this impostor. What am I to do with him? Let him direct, my sweet. If I do, Emilia said, seething, it is only under protest. Julia watched from the pit as the mini-drama took place on stage. Even by Met Opera standards, Emilia's capricious, detestable diva behavior seemed over the top. Good morning, maestro, Salman said. Then addressed the singers assembled on stage. Before we begin, may I remind you of the great Russian teacher and director Stanislavski, who said, Emilia rolled her eyes. Does he think we are beginners? She said with a disdainful pout. Salman regarded Emilia with a cold stare. Lulu is, quote, a wild journey of love, obsession, death, bloodshed, and betrayal, unquote, written in a context of darkness. He turned to the tenor. Shandor, resume your position on the floor. Marin, stay close by. Places everyone. Now, Emilia, that is Lulu. Emilia faced Salman with a disparaging look. You are Garble, Dietrich, Louise Brooks. Your formidable psychic forces cause you to destroy everyone in your path. Those who fall in love with you suffer or die. You have undone Dr. Schön, whom you have murdered, but you don't know that Goran is Jack the Ripper. Emilia remained silent. Salman turned to Goran. You, the man who murders Lulu, has transformed from the one she has murdered, still present after his death. Matt leaned over and whispered to Julia, kind of like John Crosby, right? Julia shuddered. Marin, Salman said, you must convey the distressed attributes of the Countess. When you sing in Ewigkeit after Goran stabs you, it is your Liebestod, your tragic love death, Emilia whispered to Goran. She sings it too loud, always tries to upstage me. Marin frowned. I heard that, Emilia. In case you've forgotten, I'm your lesbian lover. Try to be a little kinder, would you? Salman suppressed a groan. Let's just sing, shall we? Goran sang to Emilia. Das ist nicht deine Schwester. Sie ist in dich verliebt. That's not your sister. She clearly is in love with you. You could have fooled me, Marin muttered under her breath. What did you say? Fuming, Emilia turned to Salman. You see, she is sabotaging me. Could we continue, please? Salman begged. Lulu and Jack, off stage, final dialogue. Emilia's nostrils flared, but she allowed Goran to shepherd her off into the wings. 9, 9, no, no, came Emilia's blood-curdling cry. Lulu, mein Engel! Lulu, my angel. Marin rushed off stage, then returned, slowly backing up, eyes wide in horror, as Gurin stalked on stage, wielding an oversized stage knife, which he plunged into her. Then he washed off the knife with wine from a bottle on the table, wiped the knife on his coat, and sang, Ich bin doch ein verdammter Glücksspiel. I am just the damned luckiest of men. Salmon was ecstatic. Excellent, excellent. Meanwhile, Emilia had returned to the stage. Hours wasted because of his terrible incompetence, she shouted. Murder must be on stage. Salmon finally lost his patience. It's the way John Crosby conceived it, he growled. Take it up with him. But John Crosby is dead. Precisely, said Salmon. Oh, cried Emilia. Fuming, she marched into the wings, where she ran into Magda, the costume director. How am I supposed to stand in these shoes for 3 hours? They pinch my feet, Emilia shrieked. Where are shoes you were supposed to order from Italy? I am sorry, Emilia. They still have not arrived. I will check with wardrobe director. Emilia gritted her teeth. See that you do. Salmon was furious. Your attitude will make you more enemies than you already have, Emilia, he shouted. Turning on his heel, he stomped off stage in the opposite direction. Harold, Stewart called out, tell Emilia if she shows up at the dress rehearsal less than 30 minutes before downbeat, she will be replaced. Where is her understudy? Deborah. An attractive young woman sitting toward the front of the orchestra section stood up. I am here, maestro. Be ready to jump in case Emilia does anything else stupid. Deborah's smile radiated hope and anticipation. Yes, maestro. Harold stood rooted to the stage, his expression helpless.
Very nice. Wow, you really capture the extra drama that happens when we produce drama on the stage. I mean, there's a lot of that ego going back and forth always.
It's always there. It's inescapable. And people who come to the performances have no idea this stuff is going on, which is
Right.
makes it so much fun to write about.
Sure, absolutely. Give us a little insight into working in an orchestra. We've all seen the concert mistress stand at the front of the orchestra, especially I go to the Detroit Symphony Orchestra a lot to take in performances there. And she gives them the cue to tune at the beginning of a performance, but what are her other major duties? I have always been curious about what she does aside from tuning at the beginning.
Well, that's a good question. And it's a very important position. First of course, the concertmaster mistress tunes the orchestra, asks for the note A from the oboe, which evidently gives the purest version of that sound, so that each instrument can tune to the same pitch, so they can hopefully play in tune.
Hmm.
But that's just the tip of the iceberg. Basically, the concertmaster, being the first of the first violinist, is really the first of all the players in the orchestra. Everybody in the orchestra depends on the concertmaster for leadership and always looks to the concertmaster pretty much all the time. When the conductor, especially in an opera, is focused on what's happening on stage, the concertmaster's role is even that much more important because there are times when something can go wrong on stage and there can be a train wreck just waiting to happen. The conductor has to do everything the conductor can to make sure that doesn't happen. And so that person is preoccupied with the singers and all the acting and directing going on stage. Meanwhile, the concertmaster, with his or her body, is leading the orchestra while the conductor is otherwise engaged. And so I, for instance, remember, first of all, the concertmaster of the Met Orchestra, Ray Nevick, who was the greatest, most wonderful leader you could possibly imagine. Never, he was always there for us. He was our rock. As concertmaster, he never missed a beat. And so when stuff like that happened, and it does happen in the middle of performances, Ray would be right there leading with his violin and his bow and his whole body to make sure that the orchestra kept going no matter what was happening on stage. I
So the
remember
concert master, in effect, acts as a backup conductor.
in some ways, very much so, yes. And in fact, I remember one specific performance where one conductor, very famous conductor, but very elderly, lost his place in the middle of this scene of the opera and stopped conducting. And literally, Ray got up and started conducting with his bow while the
That's
conductor got
amazing.
conducting. I know. I've been concertmaster of a lot of orchestras. I've never had to actually do that, but I witnessed it, so I know it's real and it happens. Anything can go wrong in a
So,
performance.
so truly, the musicians have to keep their eyes on both the conductor and the concertmaster at the same time.
Absolutely, absolutely. So
Incredible.
there's a lot of pressure on the concertmaster, and for Julia in this case, her first experience in a big major orchestra as a concertmaster. She's only 23 years old, so it's only a year after the previous book. It's a very big deal for her. And on top of it, she has this guy behind her, shooting arrows behind her back, proverbial arrows.
Right.
So these are the kind of resentments. He's the one he thought he should be concertmaster. What is she doing there? All this kind of stuff, which is then reflected on stage with the singers at each other's throats. It's just too good.
It just sounds like a really story-rich environment. I mean, I can imagine whole additional stories that just have to do with the musicians themselves.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there's plenty of that in all of
That's
the books.
that's fantastic.
As you mentioned.
I love that you're writing these stories and you're bringing theater to us in a new way and music as well.
Well, the music is a huge, important part. And in this particular book, there are actually 5 operas being produced. That's what Santa Fe does every summer. So each one has murderous scene in it. And it's fantastic material, I have to say. To be able to play that music is amazing. But to have to play it with, 100 other neurotic musicians who,
Yeah,
in a,
right.
in a hole in the ground,
Yeah,
day and
this amazing, beautiful music you get to play, and then add to that 100 diverse personalities,
yep.
all doing what they do for their own estrangement, right?
No,
So
potential for catastrophe is absolutely
it, it
wonderful.
yeah, it's very target rich environment. Thank you so much for coming back on the program and reading again. I'm really looking forward to having you come back, and I hope you're going to keep writing and writing and writing.
Well, I never stop writing, whatever I'm doing, whether it's a review of a concert or number 4 in the series, or maybe something entirely different. I've discussed it with my publisher. We haven't agreed on anything quite yet, but the characters are talking to me, and one of them in particular is telling me what she wants to do as far as getting into trouble in the next book. So, yeah, I never stop. As you know, as a writer, it never stops.
Never stops. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to be with us and share your work today.
You're so welcome, Diana. I absolutely had a blast. Thank you so much.
Thank you.